So the Game Awards just happened this year, and obviously it was a big, big celebration of everything that happened this year in gaming, and a lot of good games came out, and Astrobot won. So congratulations to the team on that. I don't know necessarily that it would have been my first pick, but I also did not play any of the games that were nominated for Game of the Year. And I mean, I know Astrobot was really good. It was really fun. I am happy that it won because it is a recognition of a game that is made to just be a fun game. I feel like a lot of the times the games that get nominated and win at these shows are like these big, like cinematic experiences that kind of feel like they're trying to be more than games. They almost feel like movies at times. And I don't really, it just feels like the industry is trying to be something that it isn't. So to see that recognition for a game that is just a really fun game, it is really nice to see. But forget about all that. I want to talk about my games of the year. But before we get into that, just keep in mind that, I play like of all the games that came out this year, for one thing, I'm only a Nintendo fan, so everything I've played is on Nintendo. And for the other thing, I don't buy every new game that comes out, like not even close. So if I just did a top five of my games that came out this year, it would just be like sorting the five games that I played this year because I played like Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, Nintendo World Championships NES Edition, Amio: The Smiling Man, Mario and Luigi Brothership, and Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. So if I was only taking account the games that I played this year, my top five would be all the five games that I played this year. So I'm gonna do a little bit different, and I'm just gonna rank the five games that I played this year, even if they didn't come out this year. Though I will still try to focus on games that came out this year. There are a couple of exceptions here. So let's start with number five, which is for me Kirby's Epic Yarn. So, or Kirby of Ophi de l'Aventure. I think that's how you say that. I don't know French. Yeah, I have a French copy here with a huge sort of gash in here. I don't know what happened to it. I bought this used, and this is a pretty good game. Obviously, it is on this list. So when I started getting into gaming in around 2011, 2012, I kind of heard about this game, and I feel like I heard a lot of people be more critical of it. The fact that it was overly easy, and very different from a usual Kirby game. So I think people were a bit critical. But in more recent times, I've heard people be a lot more positive on it, and a lot of people think it's one of the best Kirby games. So I finally got the chance to play it. I did play the Wii version, not the 3DS version, because I've heard not so great things about the 3DS port. And yeah, the Wii game is very good. Kirby's Epic Yarn is an adorable Kirby game, which is kind of redundant because every Kirby game is adorable, but Kirby's Epic Yarn is very different because everything is made of yarn and it's just kind of outlined. So like you don't play as a normal Kirby, it's just an outline of Kirby. So you can't do the things that you used to do where you suck up enemies and take their powers. So instead, you have this yarn whip and you use that to attack enemies. You can either just beat them or you can roll them up into a ball and then use that as an item that you can throw. So it's a more simplified sort of format for how you control Kirby because there aren't any or almost any power-ups in this game. It's just the same action of grabbing something and throwing it around. But it's really inventive in the way that it works. On top of looking really good, and it really plays into the yarn and sort of crafty aesthetic a lot. Especially in the world map, you always see these transitions where, when you unlock a new level, the world transforms in a way that feels very natural for what you're doing. So you'll get this symbol that's like a watering can, and then the watering can, you place it in the appropriate place, and then it causes a thing to grow or something, and it opens up the path to a new level. So it's done in a very creative and natural feeling way. The way you unlock new levels, it's really nice. And then in the game itself, in the levels, the aesthetic and the crafts sort of vibe continues to play a big role because you'll do things like pull on a string and then like pull back a curtain that reveals a part of the level, or things will unfold to open up parts of the level. And when there's a building, for example, you go into the building and then you move behind the wall, and you're just like a little dot and like a highlight behind a piece of fabric. Like you're in the building and it just kind of shows you as this thing that's moving under a piece of fabric. It's all, put together very well. I really like how it looks and the whole vibe they go for. It works out great. And in terms of the gameplay, it's pretty fun. Like the entire gameplay loop is very fun. Killing enemies and, or turning them into balls of yarn. You can throw them at other enemies or objects. Like it works really, really well. It's surprisingly engaging. And, it is an easy game in the sense that you basically can't die. So that's like the big criticism that existed towards this is that you can't die in this game, really. It's just like you can do poorly, but you can never die. So it's easy in that sense, but I don't think that's a bad thing. For one thing, this makes the game accessible to pretty much anyone. Like anyone can beat the game. Like you can't die, so you just have to make it to the end. It's not really hard to do that. But if you're someone who wants to challenge yourself, I think you can find challenge in here in trying to get like the highest ranking in each level, like getting all as many gems as possible, all the hidden secrets and everything. There is quite a bit of challenge in getting the timing right or finding everything that you need to find in a level to get like 100% completion, which is what I did. There is a good bit of challenge, and I was frustrated at times even. So it's not a brain dead game. If you want to have a bit more challenge in it, you can. There's like definitely room for that, and there are a ton of collectibles that you can go for. So there's quite a bit of content in here. So I did say there were no power-ups, but there are some transformations that you can get as Kirby in very specific sections, and they're just kind of a way to spice up the level design with different things. And most of them are pretty fun. There's this sort of almost monster truck kind of thing where you're just, it just turns into more of a racing level, and that's really fun. There's the fire truck one where you have to like put out fires in the level to be able to progress, and you use like tilt controls to do that. It's pretty fun. The only one that kind of frustrated me a lot was the train, because I don't know if my living room is too big, maybe I'm too far away from the TV or something, but pointing at the screen on the Wii and drawing things using the IR pointer, it never works very well for me. It just kind of ends up like there's little stutters and jumps, and the game is a little bit picky. Like you want to draw a perfect line for the train to be able to move, and because it jitters a little bit sometimes when I'm trying to draw, it's not very fun. I kind of That's like the thing that I really didn't like about it is those little jitters that make it hard to actually get through the train parts of the level, especially when you want to get all those collectibles to get the highest ranking possible. Those parts, the strange sections can be annoying, but otherwise, like, this is a really good game. It's adorable, it's really fun, it's accessible, but there's a lot of challenge in it, so it's a very good game and I highly recommend it. And I feel like this would be a great like HD remake if Nintendo wants to be lazy. I guess they could remake this one because the yarn aesthetic would probably really benefit from from an HD remake. And the 3DS version wasn't that good to begin with, so maybe they could just go back to the original and focus on what made it good. But yeah, Kirby's Epic Yarn, very good game, highly recommended. Now, on to number 4, which is Zelda Wind Waker HD, or The Wind Waker HD. This is my first time playing Zelda Wind Waker in any form. I mean, I did play the GameCube emulated version briefly, but I never completed it or even close. I don't think I ever left the initial island. This is my first time actually beating Zelda Wind Waker, and it was a mixed bag. Like, it's interesting because I really love the aesthetic of Zelda the Wind Waker. Like the sound shaded art style is beautiful. It's really expressive and animated, and I mean you've heard this a million times whenever anyone talks about Zelda and the Wind Waker specifically. Like that, the sound shaded art style is really cute and expressive, and it makes this game very unique and timeless because this game really still looks a lot like the GameCube original from 2002, 3, I forget. But it's still beautiful and it looks great. Like, and of course in HD it looks even better. So it's a beautiful game. Like, I love the aesthetic of it. And the gameplay, of course, it's Zelda, so it's still very fun. It's what we've come to expect. You get new items, you beat enemies, you move through the dungeons. It's nothing we haven't really seen before in terms of like the overall concept, But the setting is very unique because you're on this land which has almost no land. It's actually a sea. So you're in the Great Sea, and you have to navigate from island to island using the ship or a boat, and you go around and you discover all these islands, and you just progress through the game as you normally would. And in this game, I feel like, I don't know, something is not quite as enjoyable as it is in other Zelda games. I think even though the remake added the Swift Sail item to go faster, and it helps a lot. Like once you have the Swift Sail, it's so much easier to get wherever you want. So it's really nice. Like it improves the game a lot, and it's still fun. Like I still love this game. But I feel like there's something missing that could have made this like a really, really good Zelda game, like a really special one. It's not, it didn't engross me as much as some other Zelda games have, but it's still a fantastic game. Like the gameplay, as you know, it's typical Zelda stuff. Combat's satisfying. The puzzles and figuring out how to get through a dungeon is fun. Everything is just very well done. I do like the section where you're going to like Hyrule. You have a little bit of a section where you're going to Hyrule when you see it like frozen in time, and that's kind of neat. I also didn't like the final boss though very much. It was, I don't know. I feel like I couldn't figure out how to win like the final part where you have to beat Ganondorf. I didn't really understand what I was supposed to do. I eventually got it, but I don't think I could do it again if I tried. So I don't know. It is a bit of a mixed bag, but I do still really love this game. It's Zelda. Zelda's my favorite franchise, so awesome game. Not my favorite in the series, but still an amazing game. And I hope there's a Switch version coming at some point because it really could use a little bit better performance. Like whenever bombs explode in this game, the frame rate just tanks. Like when the bomb is exploding, it's crazy slow. I don't know why, but yeah, it could definitely use that improvement. If they could make the game run at 60 frames per second, that would be awesome. So those are the two retro games that I'm including here today. So now we go on to the games that actually released this year. And at number 3, we have Mario and Luigi Brothership. I did a full review of this last week. No one watched it, so if you want to do that, please go ahead. But Mario and Luigi Brothership is my first game in the Mario and Luigi series, and I really, really, really like this game. It starts with the art style. The art style is absolutely beautiful. I love that sort of very animated, cartoonish look, but still 3D. They did it super well. I like how the outfits for the brothers have this sort of shading that goes from like red to blue or green to blue, depending on the brother. It's really beautiful. Like the entire game is beautiful, so animated. The characters, I also really like them. They have this sort of childish charm, that you see in like a cartoon on TV, like a kid's cartoon. So it's not a very adult story. It's not meant to be. Like it's clearly very kid oriented, but there's a charm to it. You kind of can't help but smile sometimes. Some of these so kids oriented stuff. It's like lighthearted and positive, and I think there's a lot of that here. There's a lot of that sort of kiddie charm in this game, so it's really nice. And then it's just elevated by the gameplay is fantastic. Like I'm not a big RPG person, but the way that it's done in the Mario and Luigi series and most Mario RPGs with the action commands where you have to press buttons at the right time to make your attacks more effective or to dodge enemy attacks, it's really, really rewarding, and it really prevents the game from dragging as some RPGs tend to do for me. Like I'm not a big RPG guy. And the turn-based stuff, like it kind of it takes a long time. It's just kind of looking at things happen, and it's not very active. So having that the action commands where you can actually interact with the game and it actually has an important role in the game, it really does make these games a lot more fun. And the combat system is it's pretty deep. You got the normal attacks, you have the bros attacks, you've got the battle plugs, which really add a lot of complexity to what you can do and really power you up in specific situations. Like there's a lot to the combat system. Traversing the world is also really, really fun. You also have bros moves there. that unlock new ways to move around, and it's very creative, and it makes it really fun to just move around and explore the world, and then you can go back to parts of the world where you've already been and use new moves that you've unlocked to go into new areas or complete new challenges. So everything about this game is actually really, really good. I enjoyed it a lot. I think, as I mentioned in my review, the only thing that is kind of iffy is like some parts of the animations and the cutscenes. They feel a little cheap. Like I feel like they could have invested a little bit more in making those scenes really feel more professionally done, I guess, in a way. But there's a lot of reused voice clips. Mario and Luigi basically just say things like Mario, Luigi, oh yeah, or things like that. So like it's a lot of repeated voice clips that kind of take a little bit away from the immersion when you're watching a cutscene. But otherwise, I think this is a fantastic game. Like it's a really, really good game. I absolutely recommend it. I'm not much of an RPG guy usually, as I already mentioned, but these sort of lighthearted, easier RPGs are great. And Mario and Luigi Brothership, in my opinion, is the best one that came out in this last year, because we had this barrage of Mario RPGs, starting with Super Mario RPG last November, 2023, and then Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and now Brothership. Brothership is my favorite of all those three. So yeah, I highly recommend this one too. So that's my number three. Now for number two, we have Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. Uh, it's hard to believe we finally have a Zelda game where you play as Zelda, and it's actually really good too, and it's in Brazilian Portuguese. It's like I think this is the first Zelda game that's translated to Portuguese in any way. So I'm not Brazilian, but just having Portuguese at all is nice, and I appreciate that effort is being done. The same thing goes for Mario and Luigi Brothership, by the way. That is also in Brazilian Portuguese, and it's really nice to see. But Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is a bit of a different take on a Zelda game. Obviously, you're playing as Zelda, and Nintendo made it so that, Zelda isn't just a skin for Link. Instead, she has a completely different skill set. And I think it's very inventive, and I think it's done very well. I know some people really wanted the combat to be more direct and more like how it is when you play with Link in other Zelda games. But much like Nintendo's logic behind this, I totally agree that Zelda shouldn't be just a skin for Link. I think making Zelda her own unique character with her own unique powers makes a lot of sense. Not because Zelda couldn't wield a sword and be strong like that, but it is I feel like if you want to like represent this character and make her relevant, you don't want her to just be a skin of another character. You want her to be unique. And having those unique abilities, I think, is really important. So yeah, here, instead of fighting directly with the enemies, you can clone objects and enemies in the world as you face them, and you use that as a way to combat other enemies. You just summon a clone of or an echo, as they're called, of whatever enemy or object you need, and that enemy or object will fight for you and defeat the enemies in front of you. And I think this works really, really well. It's like it's very well implemented. Um, as a concept, it's really good. I know some people complain about the menu being just a single line of items, and it's really hard to get through all your options. And yeah, it gets tedious sometimes, but I was okay with it. Like I didn't really mind that much. There were times when I just got a new Echo recently, and I had to like keep switching through the views to get to the one that would show me that Echo faster. But yeah, I think it was totally manageable still. It could have been better for sure, but it was definitely manageable. And the way it actually plays, it works really well. You summon an enemy, they fight for you. A lot of the time, they might die before the other enemy does. So you want to summon multiples of them, or some enemies might require a different type of enemy that you summon, because some of them might attack very quickly. So if you have an echo that attacks very slowly, the echo might be defeated before it has the chance to do any damage. So you kind of have to plan around it and make sure that you summon the echoes that are actually helpful in that combat situation. But the echoes are also especially important, I would say, for traversal. And I think it's just such a cool feeling, because you're used to these 2D Zelda games where, the trees are the limits of the world. Like where there's trees, you just don't go into it. Like that's all it's always been in these top-down Zelda games. But now, because you can pile objects up like beds and trampolines and everything is a traversable part of the world, including the trees. You just go on top of them, and there's something really cool. It's like when you put an act, a cheat code or something in an own game, and you can walk through walls. And here, it's just part of the game. Like, okay, there's trees here. I shouldn't be able to go through this because you've registered this over the years, right? But you can. You have the right objects. You just climb on top of them, and there you go. Now you're going on top of trees, and it's such a simple thing, but it really makes things feel really special. I don't know. There's a certain something to that idea of like I'm just climbing these trees that are supposed to block my way, and that's it. And there's other things like if there's a spider echo, and spiders can crawl up walls, and so you can climb really high structures using a spider, and that's also really cool. So like the options that this adds for traversal are really, really cool. It makes it really fun to just explore the world and find new ways to get from point A to point B. I saw this video, I think on Twitter, a while back, where people were using the flying tiles as means of transportation, and I can't imagine having the skills to do that, but it was really cool to see. So like it really opens up this sort of creativity that you can have while playing the game to traverse the world in the way that you want and win fights also in the way that you want. And it's just really cool overall. Like it makes this a very satisfying and engaging game to play. You can just do whatever you want. It kind of brings in a bit of that freedom from Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild into this more sort of structured world. And I think it works very well. I think also the story is interesting. I think the still world is a very cool idea. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the distortion world in Pokemon Platinum back in 2009. When you go on the walls and on the ceiling. Here, it's obviously done a little bit differently, but I think it's still awesome because you have like parts of the world that are vertical, but because the trees are growing out of them, you can climb onto the sides of the trees and just go up to where you need to be. So there's a lot of cool stuff they do with the world, the traversal. And obviously, you've also seen this in the trailers if you've watched them, but you can become Link for a limited amount of time. I tried to avoid this as much as possible. Usually only if there was like a battle that I knew I couldn't really win with just Zelda's powers, I would summon Link. But yeah, I tried to avoid it, but you can. And it kind of brings that gameplay that you're more familiar with. You can use a sword, bow, and even bombs with Link. And it's cool, and it's kind of trying to make that familiar experience available here, and that's good. I guess they kind of wanted to bridge that gap. I don't think it's necessary, but it's fine. It's good that it's there just for that familiarity, and it does add a little bit of a different element to the game, so it's not always just summoning echoes to get what you want done. So that is also, I think it's a good addition, and overall. This was a very, very good game. It was obviously nominated for some Game of the Year awards. Not Game of the Year, but some game awards at the TGAs. So yeah, it's a very good game, and I highly recommend this one as well. And now we go on to number one. So out of all these games, which one was my favorite game that I played this year? Surprisingly, Emio the Smiling Man Famicom Detective Club. This is the first visual novel I've ever played, and I have never been interested in visual novels before, but this one just won my heart like so quickly, and it's such an impactful game for me. I love this. I also haven't played the original Famicom Detective Club games, but I love this so much. So Nintendo did something really smart with this, which is they released a free demo that included like the first 4 chapters or 3 chapters of the game. And that was genius because that got me to try it. And the story just really worked for me. Like, so when I look at visual novels, the thing that I feel is that like it's a lot of that quote unquote anime stuff that you look at it and it's just kind of a little too wacky to make any sense. I don't know. Emil the Smiling Man is not like that. So I've seen some reviews. I remember reading some reviews that said this is still a cookie game, and maybe me not being a native English speaker, I don't fully understand like what cookie is supposed to mean. But I don't think anything here feels like outlandish or silly. There are characters that are a little bit strange in a way, but they still feel human. Like that it feels like they could still exist in real life. And I think that really helped me enjoy this game because the characters in this game, they feel like people, and you want to get to know them, you want to understand their motivations, and you want to understand why the things that happened. And I think the fact that they feel like real people really helps with that. It's a really important part of this experience. And so, yeah, I think that makes this game. That's what made this game interesting to me, and that's what made me want to actually buy it. And I did. I played the demo, and basically, as soon as I finished the demo, I bought the full game physically, and I loved it. Like playing through the entire game. There's only so much I can say considering it's a visual novel. It's all about the story. Like, there's not a lot of gameplay, and I can't really share much of the story. Otherwise, it kind of ruins the experience for you. But I think Nintendo did try to make it so that it's not just a cutscene the entire time. There are elements that make the game more interactive, and some people point at that as a negative because some of the things that you have to do are a little bit of obtuse. Like you have to figure out the right actions to take at any given time, and it's very often not really clear what's the right action to take. But there's not really any penalties most of the time for doing the wrong thing, so it's not a huge deal there. And more importantly, I think this just kind of makes it so that the game keeps the player engaged in a way. Like you may not be doing anything that's too interesting, like from a gameplay perspective, but it kind of makes it so that you feel like you're trying to figure out how to advance the story. And I think that that's important because that's pretty much the only gameplay element you have here, because otherwise it's just a story. And I kind of like that they have those more obtuse ways of progressing the story because that makes it so you get a little bit more invested in what's happening because you're trying to figure things out. And I think that actually kind of works in its favor. I know some people feel differently, but I think it's a good thing here. The only part that really doesn't have any interaction is the conclusion. And again, some people also didn't like that, the fact that it shifts so suddenly. But I was okay with it because it's you did it you interacted through the entire game, and then the final exposition is so impactful as in terms of the story that it tells, and so sad and depressing. And I don't know, it left such a mark on me. Like that game, watching that ending was so emotional. I didn't cry, thankfully, but it is a really, really emotional and sad ending. And the way that it's told all in a row there, I think it really works just to wrap the story up. It is odd, it is a little bit of an odd transition just to just not have any gameplay at the end there, but I think it's a very good conclusion to the story, and it just that is what makes this game so special to me, is that the story and the way that it's told on the characters, it's just really impactful. And I really really adore this game. I don't know if this is going to make me a visual novel fan. I feel like I'm not quite there yet, but I did really really love this game. It is the game from 2024 that's most ingrained in my mind, even though it's been a few months. It's the one that's really still stuck in my head, and so I had to choose it because it is so memorable and impactful in that way. So I think if you're there's even an inkling of a chance that you think you might enjoy this, please just buy it. It's such a good game. And I'm so happy, just the fact that this is a series that's over 30 years old, and it never came out outside of Japan until 2021 with the remakes. And then those remakes got this sequel produced, and it's so, so good. So please support this series because it deserves to have more entries. I don't know if I'll play them, but it really deserves to have more entries. After this, I want more. So yeah, that's my favorite game of 2024. Emil the Smiling Man, Famicom Detective Club. Please look for this box, buy it wherever you go. If you see this, just buy it. It's an awesome game. So yeah, that's my top 5 for the games that I played in 2024. There are obviously a few more. Obviously, I already mentioned Switch games that I played this year, but there are a few more that are older that I played. I played Splatoon 2, which is also very good. I played Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush, or the Rainbow Curse. Also, a pretty good game. You know, there are a lot of good games that I played this year. But these are my favorites, and they're all excellent experiences. Emil the Smiling Man is just that's my absolute favorite. But all of these are fantastic games. So if you haven't played them yet, give them a shot. A lot of these you can probably find used at a pretty reasonable price, and the others, you know, you might have to buy them brand new. But hey, it's the holiday season. If you're gonna spoil yourself, now's the time to do it. So yeah, let me know if you've played these games. Let me know what you thought of them. And that's all for this week. So I'll see you next time. Bye.